I hear everything one way, even though they say I don't pay attention. I do everything the same as the way I did it last time. Still you see never getting wrong with regret. Letting go that you pay flag. All the silence that keep me coming back. I'm the one that you hated. You know, the one you didn't want to believe. The one that you hated. Take a look at it now. I'm the next you.
Everybody, welcome back to Dad Talk. Today, I got an episode that you're going to love today. Got a dear friend here that you're going to love to hear from. Make sure to go and get this book, Trapped by Law, Stop Paying Child Support for Paternity Fraud. I don't think too many people know just how big of an issue this is. Mr. Carnell Smith, how you doing, brother?
Hey, Eric. Thanks again for an opportunity to be on Dad Talk today.
Yeah, man, we're going to do some dad talk, and hey, man, so, I reached out to you. Obviously, I still got a lot of you guys' voicemails, and we're going to go through that. I want to make sure that we talk about this issue while we got you here with paternity fraud and child support. But the issue of the day, Carnell, we talked about this last night. Kanye West,
Yeah.
$200,000 a month in child support. How is this child support? What's your thoughts on hearing that there's somebody, whether he's got the money or not? Why $200,000?
Well, this interesting point about his story. First, he wasn't ordered to pay that amount. He reached a settlement with Kim Kardashian and agreed to pay that. Now, weird thing is in California, they claim that the child support is based on a formula of 25%. And then they start looking at lifestyle of the child before the divorce and lifestyle of the parent. And supposedly you don't get to downgrade your standard of life, right? In his case, he agreed to do this, but I there's no way I would have agreed to do it. If I were him, I would have agreed to do what the law says I have to do, and everything else would be voluntarily based on when I have the kids with me and I spend money while I have the kids with me.
That is a great statement, man. I want to ask you some more about that real quick before we get into it, guys. If you're watching this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Not because we want to be a popular podcast, but because this is information that needs to get out there. We're going to tell you not just about Kanye's story so we can get views, but why is the system that way? That's what I want to know, and that's why I got this man on here. He knows a lot about it. But one other thing before we get into it, it is the Christmas season, and I can guarantee you all of the problems that you're hearing here at Dad Talk today, there's somebody that's going through it right now, and they're going to have a hard time providing for their kid on Christmas season. So we're going to adopt a dad. It looks like we might be able to adopt a few dads because we had a $500 Amazon card come in while I was on the last episode. So I think we can do a lot with that money. But if you would like to contribute towards that, the Venmo tag is down there at the bottom. It's Dad Talk Today, no spaces. Should be easy to remember. 100% of the proceeds will be going to a dad that needs it this holiday season, and we'll be even taking some of our own and throwing it out there. We might not be able to change the world right yet, but we can change the world for one person, one family, one kid that might not have it in it. And we know this, Carnell. It's not because the dad's not trying. It's because of the system that he's up against. You talk about this. Let's get back to it now that I got that out of the way. You talk about if it was up to you and you wouldn't have paid that. You wouldn't have agreed to do that. Why not?
So as for the listeners that don't know, I'm Carnell Smith. I'm the paternity coach. So I know what it's like to be on two sides of this coin. On one side of the coin, you are the biological father and you know the child is yours and you knowingly and willingly agree to support the child at a financial level that you know you can sustain and support. That's one side of the coin. And your expectation, though, is that you get to support a child that you get to actually have a relationship with, meaning frequent, consistent, quality contact with the child. And I don't mean a freaking video call once every other week and once every other weekend and 2 weeks in the summer, that's not much of a quality contact. On the other side of the coin, there's this growing club of dupe dads who fall in the category of paternity fraud victims. And that includes a billionaire who I know paid more child support than Kanye. The billionaire who I met was paying $300,000 per month. And it has nothing to do with whether or not these guys can afford it. But the same thing exists whether you pay $75 a week or you pay $200,000 a month. You actually want to have a relationship with the kids, not just automatic transfer. Well, should I say it? ATM, auto transfer to mom.
Yeah.
That's not what the guys are signing up for.
I like that. I'm gonna have to make some ATM comments or like little emojis that people can put out there. But I've seen you say this before, Carnell, and when it comes to dads, explain this for the audience, because I think this is so important. We are the ones that are responsible for fighting back at the narrative. That narrative has said that if you are a dad, if you want to be a good dad, you'll pay for it. Yeah. They've done a good job at making that narrative.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. So if we rolled, if we had our Thanos snap gloves on and we rolled the clock back, right? Back in the day, there was a time where men predominantly supported the entire household and mom was a Sam, AKA stay-at-home mom. And that was by mutual agreement. It was the best thing for the kids. And guess what? Even the psychologists and other experts will say today, the best success pattern for kids today is to have involved mom and dad with frequent, consistent quality contact.
Yep.
However, when men and teen boys as a whole, as a group, try to go to family court, for the past 2+ decades, what I've seen guys go, they're going there to get to see the child and to have a relationship with the child that is not based on the mother's state of mind, based on her mood, based on her temperament, and based on whether or not she wants to be cooperative today or this week. And by the way, she flips a middle finger at the court order, and the judge, I saw this with my own eyes by doing court watch with many pastors. We see them go into court and say, hey, Your Honor, sir, hold on. I have this court order that you signed that's got your name on it that says I'm supposed to get my kid 45% of the time. And for the last 900 days, I have not been able to exercise my rights and my child's rights. What happened to the best interest of the child? Why does best interest of the child not include you protecting the child's ability to have frequent, consistent contact with the father and the paternal family? And guess what? Now it's a growing number of non-custodial moms who are getting to experience what this like. So yeah, what that means,
because they make more money most of the time.
The formula for child support is initially set up when you start involving the child support agency, aka profit-making arm for the state, which, by the way, if most people will look it up, under your state, the Department of Revenue is where the child support agency is based under. Say, wait a minute, taxpayer federally funded money out of Social Security Act Title 4D, and as well as incentives to the states under Section 458 out of the federal government, is paying to separate you from your kid as a starting point. Look, tell me again about best interest of the child. If I sound like I'm a little hyped and animated, yeah, I know what that's like, because when your child lived with you, you were able to do everything for your child, and involuntarily, soon as there's two different households, whether you want to be separate from your kid or not, and you might even be the best mentally and emotionally stable person for your kid. But as a default, what does the court say? Based on the tender years doctrine, the kid's best with the mother, even though dad might be the most emotionally mental stable person, which would benefit the kid because it creates the highest support payment that they can get a slice out of. If it wouldn't be a copyright violation, we play that track of that song called Money, 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 Money.
Guys, if you can't tell by the smile on my face, man, it's always good to be here with Carnell. And if you like what you hear today, get on YouTube, get on Facebook. Carnell's been on the show many times, and we talk about like his whole journey. But I think if there is any first-time viewers here at Carnell, they need to know why I wanted to pick you in here, because I want you to explain Title 4D. We're going to get to your voicemails.
Right.
I promise we're going to listen to your voicemails. I want you to talk about Title 4D because you have taught me so much. A lot of what I repeat comes from gentlemen like this who have taught me so much. But before Title 4D, I'm just going ahead and setting up the episode.
All right.
11 years. You think you guys got it bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you hear these stories and you're like, oh my God, 11 years you paid in child support for a child you found out that was not yours.
Yeah.
Tell everybody a little bit about your story, Carnell.
All right. Thanks, Eric. In fact, that is how I ended up meeting you at Dad Talk today and a whole bunch of advocates over the past 20 plus years, is that my ex-girlfriend, she picked up her phone and she dialed the wrong number. Now, why do I say wrong number? She called me instead of her child's father and then convinced me that I had caused her pregnancy. And she used some of the typical emotional tactics. She told me how much the kid looked like me. She told me of dates that coincided when she and I had been together. And it took me 11 years to find out that was a complete lie. And apparently me and the biological father have some similarities in terms of features and probably some, similar doses of melanin in our skin content.
Are you saying he's black?
I'm saying he's black. And if you can't figure it out yet, I was trying to be PC about the whole thing. What the heck with PC?
I got color too, man.
But the whole point here is this. Many men get emotionally manipulated, and teen boys, by the way, and it leads you to the path of becoming a prisoner and income-producing property of the state. And how is that? Because once you sign a document at the hospital, which I call a confession of paternity with no proof, based on what? Her word alone, she swears to you, you're the only one. And this is what Cupcake says. It can't be nobody else. And you don't know she got her fingers crossed behind her back because, when Cupcake has her finger behind her back, she's immune from telling the truth, at least according to those hamsters running on that wheel in her mind. You getting my pictures here? But this same thing happens whether there's married women, single women. And I know 5 pastors and a billionaire who all experience the same thing, to where their wives lied about the children. And these men, just like me, found out by DNA testing, the kids are not theirs. And I'm hated for something I'm about to say, so brace yourself.
Oh, no, I'm with you. I'm ready for it. I'm behind.
I say unequivocally, unapologetically, men and teen boys have zero responsibility, duties, or financial obligation for children who are not theirs, unless he adopts a kid that he knows up front is not his, or he knowingly, willingly participates in assisted pregnancy, and she has his current consent and authorization on file.
But how do you guarantee that that's your kid, Carnell? How does that, how is there a formula where we can make that work?
Well, in my book, I actually created this formula after interviewing several members of the medical community, obstetrician, gynecologist. And guess what these doctors told me? They said they have multiple times over the years where women come in, and teen girls, to try to get them to change the calculated due dates so it will line up with what she told her boyfriend, her husband, her fiance, or her friends with benefits dude.
Now we're getting the medical community in this. How big does this rabbit hole go?
Oh, hey, let's ask Alice in Wonderland. How far? Look, when you take the red pill, we go all the way down to the bottom of the rabbit hole.
You took it. I was going to tell people before we get into Title 4D, before we get into all this, do you want the red pill or you want the blue pill? If you want the blue, you need to leave. I'm giving you, because once you hear this, it changes your thoughts on what's going on. And there might be a guy sitting there saying, I'm just paying too much in child support, or I'm not being able to see my kid. That's all I want to do. I want to hear my story. You need to hear this. It goes beyond your story. This is the reason why your story exists, guy.
And these guys think it's only their county. They think it's only in their county or in their city. This happens nationwide.
And not even just nationwide. I was talking to callers from Canada just a couple hours ago and hearing their version of Title 4D. A lot of these states operate the same. Australia is almost identical to the states, sometimes worse.
Yes.
Sometimes worse. So
because they pattern themselves after this is our income producing property state scheme for the states. States, by the way, Title 4D that is under Social Security, it was originally created in the 70s, and it was originally created to provide a means of collecting funds for, brace yourself for this, for welfare recipient single mothers. And the goal was, in my opinion, to minimize how much of the states and government's finances, which are really taxpayer money, would be used for supporting and caring for the kids. Now, that sounds good up front. And by the way, in that time, it was a means tested program, which means you had to be broke enough and you had to qualify at a standard that was verified, that you needed the help and that you couldn't collect and get the money on your own. So this was supposed to be a stopgap to, quote, keep them from living on the taxpayer dole. All right. But then in the let's say 95 to 98, President William Jefferson Clinton, aka Slick Willie, and there are reasons that he's called that, but we won't get into that. All right.
You play a good saxophone.
Yeah. And what he said, he did not have sex with that woman. She had sex with him. Yeah, that's Slick Willie, right? Okay. But
you bringing Monica into this. That's wrong.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Go ahead.
But look, he signed some legislation that modified Title 4D and it created what they call the Personal Work and Responsibility Reconciliation Act. They call it POWER, PWORA, etc. And during that time, they created some very profitable incentives for the states to modify their laws to set up child support enforcement agencies in each state. And they had to modify their state laws in order to accommodate this private contract, quote, private contract using state dollars and federal dollars to, quote, keep people off of the public dole. Sounds great at first, but then states started expanding the program to where it's no longer now just about supporting welfare related cases or temporary assistance for needy family cases. Our tax dollars that come out of our paychecks are financing the very program that is used as an incentive to minimize how much parenting time that we get with our kids so that they can set the maximum child support, establish an income deduction order. So now we're going to make you pay it through the Child Support Enforcement Agency. We're going to charge you a fee for it being used to go through that agency. And then we're going to use taxpayers' dollars and reimburse the state 66% of the administrative costs. And we're going to set up a bonus system for the state so that if they do a great job collecting year over year better than they did the last year, they get to participate in a $500 million bonus pool. And
Texas wouldn't do that, would they?
Every U.S. state would do that.
Really?
And some states have gotten better at it. None better than California, by the way.
Oh, really? I thought
dragged
Texas was
in
worse.
more than $1 billion per
Billion?
year. Billion.
Wow.
Billion. But let me tell you some of the dangers for this. All right. So on one hand, you see the impact, what happens when kids don't have the guiding hand of their father in their lives, those committed, willing, and able fathers who are fit, capable, but they're just being held out by process and this non-law court. By the way, family court is not a court of law. You can look it up and find out for yourself. Family court is called a court of equity. However, if you are dealing with a child support hearing, in most cases, that is a child support magistrate, and that person who was in that proceeding in most cases is not even a judge. Let me say that again. Not even a judge. And when you and I don't know how the system works, we will submit ourselves under jurisdiction to that private high conflict collection agency. And I call them high conflict because they are not there really to help the mother. They are not there really to help the child. It is there to really ensure that money gets transferred from point A to point B and that they get their cut. Doesn't that sound like the house at Vegas?
It does, but it brings me to this other conversation, Title 4E.
Yeah.
Wait, dude, look. We don't have enough time for it. Okay,
No,
we don't have enough time
sections.
for it. That's it. Carnell asked me. He's like, "How much time do you want on the show today?" I was like, "We'll try to stick at an hour," because I had him on there for like 2 or 3 one time, and those are long podcasts. But guys, this thing goes.
Recommend
deep.
something for people who want to get deep in the rabbit hole, because there is a great lady who I met named Molly Olson. With the Centers for Parental Responsibility out of Minnesota. Met her in DC with her husband some years back. You want to go on YouTube and look up. She has the history for the whole Title 4D broken down and how it got expanded. Because why that's important, if you want to learn how to change it, you got to know where things went wrong. And at this level, we want to bring about discussions with our U.S. congressmen and our U.S. state senators to make modifications so that the states modify these programs so that it is only for its original congressional intent. And that was to help those families who were either at risk to be driven into poverty if they didn't get the child support collected and paid, and those who were so poor that they would be a major financial burden on the taxpayers. But currently, this thing has been expanded to include the middle class, the upper middle class, and if somebody like Kanye voluntarily agrees to pay it through the child support agency, child support enforcement agency, they will actually count that $1.24 million a year that he pays as part of their annual reporting. And guess what? There's also a negative connotation where they collect money and don't distribute it. It's called undistributed collected funds. And guess who gets to keep the interest off all that money? And until somebody asks for that money, it doesn't get paid. And it doesn't get sent back to you.
So how does this system operate like this without anybody trying to do anything about it?
Well, here's what I say. The fox will say there's nothing wrong with him stealing hens out of the hen house. In fact, what doesn't get monitored doesn't get evaluated. If there's no, I like to say, if there's no audits periodically, annually, biannually, 2 years, 3 or 5 years, you don't really know what's going on. All you know is you get a sense of, is something not right with this? Man, why are they fighting me over me getting to see my kids more than once every other week? I was good enough to see the kids 7 days a week when we had the same address. Now suddenly me and my kid don't have the same address, and there's a problem with me all of a sudden. I supported everybody.
So there might be somebody that saw the thumbnail and there was like, they were going to talk about, Kanye. Now, how does this all flow together, Carnell? Now you're talking about because of the way Kanye was doing this, that they're going to make 66%. That's going to get there. So they're going to have what, 1 point something million dollars
that'll flow through. Look,
it's going to flow through
their system. So if he doesn't pay that money directly to Kim, I haven't seen what his order looks like. But sometimes guys think they're doing a great thing by agreeing to pay through the child support system. I was like, man, you're inviting conflict in your life when you just as easily could use Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, and you pay the child support directly to her, and you have a record of proof that you paid it and what it was paid for. Man, there's some great resources out there, like the lead attorney on the YouTube. He has
Oh
a
yeah.
great video on a bunch of mistakes that men make in overpaying their child support. And I've said this to you before, Eric. There's a lot of times that us guys get confused and manipulated emotionally. We think that if we pay more money, it demonstrates we're more responsible and how much we love our kid.
And the
No.
family courts know that.
Yeah. And by
They
the
know
way, they'll use that our desire to be a provider protector will get used against the good guy. And then they'll attempt to shame him and try to cast him into the category. And they use this loose term of deadbeat dad when it's a complete lie. Because a lot of those guys who I've met and looked at their cases, the guys that they're calling deadbeat dads, some of these guys have never made more than $15,000 per year, but yet he's got a child support bill of over $60,000. When if the kid lived with him, he would never possibly spend $60,000 almost in the lifetime of the kid. So how do these numbers get created? They create things called imputed income. They look at how long the guy's been working. They look at what field he's in, and they ignore economic data about, well, are there jobs in his field right now? Because let's say you worked in manufacturing and a huge number of jobs got shipped offshore and shipped to China, well, your entire industry was affected. So when your job left you and your skills were something very specific, you don't have a replacement job. Now you got to go get retooled, re-educated, retrained for something else. However, we're not going to give you a break on your support payment because you need to just get out there and work 3 8-hour jobs so that you can make the payment for what you used to do. And until you pay that money, I tell you what, we're going to put you in jail for 180 days and we'll let you out when you raise the money. Now, we're not violating your rights. We're putting you in jail because you're not following the court order. Now, doesn't that sound like some word salad to you?
Oh, it definitely does, man. I mean, we're almost at the halfway mark, Carnell, and I want you to hear some of these voicemails. I got a victim of paternity fraud that you're going to hear on here, and I've had several this week, and I wish he would have been on here. The perfect person. If you guys want to know more about that, Trapped by Law, Stop Paying Child Support for Paternity Fraud. Great book. I got several copies over here myself. Guys, if you got some voicemails on this, 762-441-0281. Thank you for everybody that's been participating. But if you've been listening for the past 20 minutes and he's talking about this thing, Title 4D, and I understand it's very complicated and some people don't follow. I mean, in a brief nutshell, if we could give it as small as we could, Carnell, it sounds like there is an incentive for them to award the least amount of time for whatever parent makes the most amount of money, which sometimes is going to be the woman, which you see a lot of these celebrity women that are making more money now because they pay the max in child support and then that goes back to the state. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the state makes profits off of it, not directly, but indirectly, because they'll make money off the fees because when you pay through that program, the state's not going to pay those fees, those transaction fees.
Processing.
You are. And if there's multiple states involved, like your ex has moved from your home state. So now let's say you started out in New York and now your ex is in Florida. That's 2 states involved now. So there's a processing fee for New York and for Florida. You get to pay both of those. And that's added on top of the child support payment, which is why there's an extreme disadvantage if you agree to pay more than what the law says you have to. I'm in agreement with the lead attorney here. Don't be duped into believing how much you love your kid with how much you pay. Those 2 things have nothing to do with each other. And dadgummit, if you agree to do more, you should agree to do more on a contingency of actual parenting time with your child. I will do this while the child is in my custody with me. Now, if a child's not allowed to be in my custody, then these extras go away.
That's it, man. And Kanye, I hope you was hearing that. I hope it makes you go from west to east, go in the opposite direction of what you're doing now.
Absolutely.
That was a horrible
Otherwise,
dad joke.
otherwise it's ATM, auto cash to mom. There's
I love
zero
it.
accountability of how it's spent. There's zero record keeping required. And if mom takes a trip to Europe for 2 weeks and drops her kids off at her mom's house and the money goes with her to Europe, there ain't much you can say about it.
ATM. I love that one. I'm going to have to use that. But you also said Sam. I had never heard that.
Yeah, that's the acronym for stay at home mom.
But then I got to thinking about it. It's like, if that's Sam for her, then it's sad for dad.
Yeah. But guess what? If we had a rebuttable presumption of equal shared parenting at the beginning, because let's think about it. When you lived at the same address with your kid, it was equal. Hello.
There you go.
I dare say, in many cases, if dad was the higher income earner, dad was providing the very ability for her to be a stay-at-home mom. But it is darn near impossible for a non-custodial parent to support both households at 100% of the same level as he did or she did when it was one household. In other words, 100% of the money that it took to finance one household at the beginning, you can't sustain two new households at the same level after the split of the relationship. And he shouldn't be required to. Now, I'd be okay with some, providing interim support to help mom get skilled and trained, and she must get herself a job, and that she must be ready to do it with a fixed time limit. So you're going to have to get her after it. You know what I mean? If she's no longer in my last name, I don't owe her a thing. If she doesn't live at my address, I don't owe her a thing. If it's so difficult to take care of the kid, give me my kid. Hello.
With you, brother. All right, guys. We are going to get to these voicemails. I appreciate it, Carnell. We're going to have to do it again, man, for sure. Keep the voicemails coming in, 762-441-0281. I'm going to get to our first caller.
Paternity fraud. It's Brad Jakes here again from Alberta, Canada. So the situation with my youngest, I have two kids. I have a 17-year-old that his mom's kept him from me for over 7 years. I have my 3-year-old I'm currently fighting, and we're going to trial next month. Now, back in October 2021, she made me do a DNA test when my son was about a year and a half, and it got found out he's not biologically mine. Now she's even claiming to the courts that she never even ever made assumption or claim that he was mine, which I provided over 40 text messages to my lawyer that proves that she has, and many ways that are undisputable that she claimed that he was guaranteed mine. Now she's actually even saying that she's always known there was a chance he wasn't, yet she took me to court back in 2020 for custody, and she was trying for full custody and as well as for child support. I do still pay child support, to be honest. I'm fine doing it. I love my son. He is my son. A piece of paper won't change that. So I am fighting because she's trying to 100% remove me. And she even says, you know what, you can still end up paying until he's 18, which is true. But I'm not going to give up on him. He is my son. No piece of paper is going to change that. And I don't know if I believe if she always knew that he wasn't mine, but there's a bond. I'm a proud father. I love that boy to the end of this world. I'll do anything for him. I get him every single weekend. Ever since I saw the DNA results, it's not changed anything in my mind, my heart, my eyes, nothing. I treat him the exact same way as before. He's my son. So I don't know if you would say this as a paternity fraud. I don't know if she really didn't know or if she's telling the truth that all the doctors lied. Honestly, there is question if maybe she actually found a way to fraud the DNA test. I don't know, because he looks so much like me, and there's just too much that makes me question. It's just, that's another topic for another day, I guess. But I kind of do believe he might be my son, but that's not the way that I see it. He's my son, either biological or not. It can be proven to me 1,000%. I love that boy. I'll never give up on him. And I'm fighting tooth and nail, and she's killing me with all these bad faith allegations to the maximum. Like, she's gone way above what you might have heard from some people. I don't know, but I don't want to get into that too much. But I exposed some of it in one of my calls before that aired once before. But yeah, anyways, thanks, Eric, for everything you do. I appreciate it, and a lot of us do, I could see.
Dude, so that I know you got personal experience in that arena, but
Sure do.
that I'm sitting here listening to this caller,
Mhm.
Carnell, and it's really sad because obviously there was a mom here that
Mhm.
is at the top of this. Now,
Mhm.
there's a couple of different scenarios. There could be a
Mhm.
dad out there that is a very loving dad and would be there
Mhm.
and would take care of the kid that doesn't even know. And she pulled the same swerve on him that she's doing with
Mhm.
you. There could be a
Mhm.
guy out there that knew that she set you up. There's so many different scenarios, but
Yes, sir.
you should find out, because if there is a dad out there, he might be on your team. You guys might
Absolutely.
actually be able to team up and say, hey, look, there's two of us here. Look at the mess they put us in. Not did they
Yep.
just put us in this mess, but they put the
Yep.
kid in there.
Yep.
And here's this
Absolutely.
guy, he's being told he's not the father. And the only thing that's holding him there, Carnell, is the thing that you warn people about the most. I think they look like me and I
Yep.
love them. I
Yep.
love them.
Yep.
You parented a child that you thought was yours. You were this man. What
Yep.
could you say to him, Carnell?
So first, thanks, Eric. I can touch on this story from a first-hand point of view, as one who's personally dealt with it, from having found out a child wasn't mine for 11 years after the child's mother. We went from unlimited parenting time to once every other week, and then none when she refused to let me see the child. So at this point, my pastor's father talked me into getting a DNA test, and I find out the child was not mine, and that it is common, something he saw happen to many military men. And that led to me working with groups, including the Veterans Against Paternity Fraud. Over 600 members of the military men, officers, non-officers, every branch of the U.S. Armed Forces. So first, I'm so sorry to hear that you and this child have both been duped, tricked, and led into a relationship where you guys are not related. And I completely understand loving the child. So my suggestion would be, I would pursue finding out who the biological father is, and that you two would become allies and work together in the best interest of the child, because it is not uncommon that the biological father does not even know he has a child. And in many cases, the guy who got told he was the father was the guy, which is the good guy who had a stable income. It was the guy she loved at the time. And it is not uncommon that the guys will look alike because you guys are her type. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I found out myself and the biological father have some similar features. Apparently, we may have fit her type of guy. So when you have a low standard like the lookalike test, it is so low that if there are multiple men who look alike, the baby will, of course, will look like those guys. That's why you need something more accurate, that way you can discern and narrow it down. And I've even, using my experience, because I ended up marketing DNA services for over a decade, for maternity, paternity, immigration services worldwide. I've even solved a case involving identical twins. So in this scenario, step one would be, if you take the right steps, you could verify whether or not there was some shenanigans with that first test by doing a second test that was verified with witnesses, meaning yourself and your attorney be present for the sample collections of all of the parties, and that the samples then immediately get sent to the lab, and that you guys get notification of the shipment and follow the full chain of custody, and the results get sent straight to the court for a second lab that is different from the initial one. If the second test says the same thing as the first test, you and the child are not related. Doesn't mean you can't love the child, but I would opt to get out of the child support system and agree to support the child voluntarily, as long as you are allowed to be a contributor to the child's life as a father figure. But I wouldn't stand in the way of the biological father having access to his child. And You need to know that right now, your medical history is of zero value for this child. Think about this for a second. I've had some friends and clients who found out that they were not related to the child due to medical testing where the child had an issue that would endanger the child's life, and they needed to formulate a treatment plan. And say cystic fibrosis, sickle cell, multiple sclerosis, a whole bunch of things like this, where the child gets the disease based on the mother, the biological mother, and the biological father being a carrier of the disease. This has got nothing to do with whether you love the child, but if you truly love the child, you will want this child to have accurate family medical history. There is a compelling reason to know what the medical history, because if in the father's family, people die early, like in their 20s, unless they get diagnosis and start a treatment plan early, the child's life could be short. Well, do you want to play Russian roulette? Do we want to say children are not important enough to know what their family lineage is, what their family medical history is, and God forbid they end up dating their sister, or like some have actually married their sister unknowingly because they didn't know their family history. Now, am I minimizing the bonding and the time where the guy has loved the child? No. But I'm saying get out of the child support system so that you don't pay and become part of income producing property for the province of Canada. Okay? Do things voluntarily. Become an ally to where you and the biological father join forces in the best interest of the child. Both of you establish a relationship with the kid. You guys help the kid. And dare say, what if you guys are better in terms of being custodial parents for the kid than she is? I say that's how best interest of the child might be best pursued. But expect to get fought tooth and nail by the child support agency and the judiciary. Because sad to say, a lot of the judges' retirement funds ends up being funded off of some of this child support collection money. Now, are those real judges supposed to be fair and impartial in their hearings? Yes. They're supposed to be called triers of fact? Yes. But there's this difference between administrative law, which is where a lot of the child support cases operate under, and family law, which is a court of equity, versus constitutionally protected law, where your rights matter. And when we walk into those arenas not knowing up front, what are our rights? How does the court work? What is the proper way to submit evidence? What my desired outcome is there a way to achieve that in that court? Because sometimes we try to do the right thing in the wrong arena. So trying to do something in the child support enforcement hearing that you should be doing in the family court is a waste of time, effort, and money. But when we don't know that, we end up oftentimes suffering long, losing a lot of time, energy, and money. And I'm going to dare say, it is not uncommon in the U.S. that after 2 to 3 years of court battles, it is not uncommon that men actually fade out of the life of the child because they've been driven into poverty. I have interviewed bankruptcy attorneys, and they said one of the leading causes of bankruptcy in the United States is the impact of family law on that guy who was, when I say guys, mostly because it's in my experience, it's about 95% or so of child support payers are dads. And those are the people who are driven into poverty, into bankruptcy. And we've also seen those guys be killed by family members of the mother who lobbies a ton of false allegations. So you find yourself trying to fight on multiple fronts to be in the life of your kid, and the custodial parent will lie to keep you from being able to see the kid. So now this creates you having a legal battle in the criminal court, a legal battle in the family court, and you dealing with the child support enforcement agency under administrative law. And you can literally be passed around through all three courts, and you're bleeding cash. And I'm going to say it. I'm going to lay it on the table. You cannot sustain a legal battle at $200 to $500 an hour indefinitely when you don't earn $200 to $500 an hour in your profession.
Oh, I love
Something is going to break.
that. That is so true, man. And you know, we kind of talked about how it got here. I want to pick your head on this because again, I can't imagine what it would be like to go through this, and there's got to be a lot of emotions, and you can see they're rushing in on this guy. This is a child that I love.
Yes.
I'm having to fight all these different emotions, and I believe
Yes.
whether it's child support, false allegations, you get with a woman, she's not who she said she was, or whatever.
Mhm.
Men, our emotions get the best of us, and then that's how they play this system.
Yes.
They fault you to get into that system, like the whole way around. He's talking about aligning with somebody that might actually fight with you, but men, we let our pride and our emotions get in the way, and sometimes it's our biggest enemy.
Yes,
Sometimes
sir.
our biggest enemy is ourselves. I understand that you love this child, and that's an amazing thing, dude. You're wanting to provide. But Carnell, let me ask. It seems like I know what it's like to be in a relationship when these things are going wrong and there's things that's not supposed to happen. But because I'm one of these emotional guys, I'm empathetic. I would make excuses for the things that was going on, right? Instead of just saying, "Hey, here's the story. I got to get a hold of this." I know she's mine, even though they had the DNA test. They're doing all this. Is that just assurance that, or is it denial? I just don't want to go through the pain. Well, these guys, even though they're going through this, because I've heard of people that come out and the baby's a different ethnicity.
Absolutely.
And then they get convinced that that is their kid. And it's because they're in that denial and say, I am the dad.
But they don't want to be the dad. They want to be a dad, and they get manipulated emotionally. And it's not rare, and it's not uncommon. I mean, you just gave some examples of, I had a family member who actually worked at a hospital, and was part, worked with the delivery team. And listen to me, I'm gonna say this. This may sound comical, but a white woman comes into the delivery room with her white husband, and that baby that came out, we didn't need a DNA test to figure out that could not be his baby.
Me, myself, and Irene. Look, it's on that movie.
I believe Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder could see that baby was not his. So if you're white and the mother's white, and that baby is clearly Asian, when that baby comes out, I don't need her to be trying to, she's trying to come up with a cover story now to say, well, in my family, I have Asian lineage.
23andMe, Ancestry.com, it's anything.
And the Ancestry and the Heritage.com and those other DNA lineage tests turned out there ain't nobody in her family of Asian descent ever. But in those cases, what married men need to know that in those U.S. states that still honor what we call the marital presumption of paternity, that means any children you have while she is still married to you, even if you guys are physically separated, you are deployed out of the country, and you are thousands of miles away from her at the time of conception, they will put those children in your name. And I've seen people literally like, no, I'm not going to file for divorce. I'm going to let her do it. Like, guys, you're taking a risk, because in those states that support the marital presumption, they're going to come after you for child support. And that includes medical and a whole bunch of other things. And any services that the state provides to her for that child, they're going to come after you for reimbursement of that. That's literally like somebody having your debit card conned you out of the PIN number, and they're out spending money at twice the rate that your paycheck's putting it in the account. And then when it exceeds, they charge you interest because you're behind and you're a scofflaw. You should be taking care of your responsibilities, man. Any children she has, those are your kids, buddy. And Eric, the dumbest thing I've heard some judges say that getting a DNA test is weaponizing DNA against the mother. I'm like, that is complete bunch of malarkey.
Have you seen what the conservatives are pushing right now with the Unborn Child Support Act?
I'm okay with it. Listen, I'm okay with it. But I'm gonna tell you why. This may
Okay.
surprise you.
It is
We're
right
talking
now.
about Senator Rubio out of Florida. He is proposing to establish a child support order during the pregnancy. I'm okay with it because guess what? That would acknowledge that the child is a person before delivery. But now we should make it a mandatory requirement that we establish the identity of whose sperm did she use to get pregnant with. And don't tell me about how it's automatically the husband's or the dude she's living with, because having been a legal DNA service provider, and I've had multiple cases where I've tested multiple men, it wasn't the guy she was living with, it wasn't her side boyfriend, and it wasn't her ex-husband, but yet she had conned all three guys into paying her child support by threatening each of the guys, saying that if you make me take you to court, I'm going to go after everything that the state will make you pay under the child support agency. And let's suppose that based on these guys' income, let's suppose that would be $1,600 a month. She will make each guy a deal based on his income. So if the state would make you pay $1,600, I'm only going to ask for $1,050 if you keep it between me and you. And you know what a lot of guys will do? They'll take that deal. This woman, a woman actually got 3 different guys to pay her child support for the same twins. Listen, there are all kind of shenanigans going on out here. Why? Because a lot of us, when we deal with teen moms and old moms and young moms, we don't believe that what's that fairy tale talks about snakes and tails, puppy dog tails, and girls are nice and all of that. Listen, with the modern day feminism and womanist, this pattern of you can do everything that men can do. If men can have multiple partners, she can have multiple partners. I'm saying, well, girl, you do you. You can have equal rights, but you can't skip equal responsibility. You can't skip equal accountability. So in that case, what Senator Marco Rubio was talking about, did you know that starting at 8 weeks, we can establish the truthful paternity of the child before delivery, starting at 8 weeks with a legal DNA test. And I would recommend to all of my clients, starting at week 8 is where we're going to require a legal DNA test to see whose baby that is.
And see, that's the thing, Carnell. I want to bring that up. Rubio is one of the more popular, well-known names, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the only one out there.
Yeah,
and that's what most people think that I'm talking about. Have you seen the one that Kramer's behind?
No.
I got screen share right here. Can you see it?
Got it.
All right. You can go down through here and read it through yourself. But this is the part. It's talking about the mother can provide flexibility if she doesn't want any involvement by the father.
Oh, heck no. No discretion.
Check this out.
No.
Mandates that all paternity tests be at the discretion of the mother and not be conducted if the test would put the child at risk. Read that again. Paternity tests be at the discretion of the mother. So you could be on the hook for paying child support, and she could say you're the father, but she does not have to do a DNA test. Now, how do you think about that one?
So let's talk about this, because we need to know the current probability of paternity fraud. First, I'm going so far in this conversation, we went down a rabbit hole. I never defined what paternity fraud is. So I want to let people understand why I'm so passionate on this topic. It's in the best interest of the child to know what the facts are of whose names are on their birth certificate, so they can establish accurate family medical history, accurate family lineage, and a whole litany of other benefits. So should they be a lawful heir to an estate, it will be based on facts and truth. So what I'm saying here is, when I was pursuing legislation in the state of Georgia, and carrying on to go on and help another additional 10 plus states with legislative reform, and quite many of those have been successful in reforming it. my legislators asked me, what is the incident of fraud? And I said, first, let's define it. It is when the mother or legal guardian of a child claims that a man or a teen boy is the father of a child, while at the same time concealing the identities of other paternity candidates from that guy.
Should that be required?
That should be mandatory. Because a whole lot of guys have been duped and believe, man, this is my sweetheart. This is my high school sweetheart. She would never, listen here,
Carnell, we're about to get canceled.
Look, she'll never do that to me.
Yep.
And since I have 5 pastors who were paternity fraud victims from the first lady of the church, those 5 pastors were married to those women, and those 5 pastors turned out to not be the biological fathers. And the whole group of the Veterans Against Paternity Fraud, married men, single men, victims of default judgment, all of those guys have the same thing. All of them are just like me. We have a DNA test that says 0% paternity, meaning we didn't cause that pregnancy. We could not have never been the biological father. And she lied from the beginning because she willingly and knowingly concealed the existence of other paternity candidates from that guy. Over 2+ decades, Eric, I've asked men this question. If you knew there was 1 to 20 other guys that could be the child's father, would you agree to support the kid without proof?
They don't know that.
They don't know that. But when I asked the question that I asked, they said, oh, heck to the no. I said, if you knew right up front that she was with your cousin, your best friend, her own cousin, and you during the window of conception, and you knew this up front, and they wanted you to sign because you made the most money, what would your answer be? Most guys had a no so strong that their no was filled with profanities that I shall not repeat on your very kind and generous show.
Oh, you're okay. You're okay. I mean, for any of the viewers that's watching this, and we kind of told you this at the very beginning, I got something for you. There it is. You just take it. Swallow
Morpheus recommends take the red pill.
Take it, swallow it.
Red pill.
Carnell, this is hurting me, man. I'm having too much fun. There's too much truth going on here to end it, but we are at the hour mark. So what I want to do really quick, I don't want to keep you too much further than that. We'll just have to have you back on. I want you to hear from one more caller. We'll get this in. And guys, if you liked Carnell, let us know down in the comments. Like I said, make sure to get out and support this book. I've learned a lot from this guy, and he's been a great friend to me. 762-441-0281. Here's our next caller.
Hey, Eric, how are you? I love the work that you do. I just wanted to give you a heads up. I'm watching the video on child support is big business. There's one major piece of information that most people don't ever talk about. I'm a father. I was paying child support when the mother had temporary custody, even though she was the perpetrator of domestic violence. It took me 40 months to win custody and prove my case in court. And now I have custody and I am receiving child support. The big part of child support that nobody talks about is that the entire calculation formula, in my view, in my calculations, and in the view of many other economists, is that the child support formula is a complete fraud. In New York, you pay 17% of income for one child, but that's not the actual cost of raising a child. It's an inflated cost. I have a master's degree in finance. So I've done all the math and all the research, and it's obvious to me. It's plain as day obvious, yet nobody talks about it. The cost of raising a child is extremely different than the calculation of child support. So think about it. The family court system creates inflated child support awards so they can get more money in the system. And then on the custody side, they rubber stamp the mother with custody so that fathers have to pay more child support. It's completely unjust. It's crooked. And we need to change the entire system. We should probably just fire all of the family court employees and start from scratch with a whole new system. I just wanted to share that with you. Hopefully that helps and you can keep that conversation going. Thank you.
All right. Carnell, what did you think about that?
I'm well familiar with that. So it's what the gentleman is talking about, that there is a requirement from the feds that the states are supposed to have a a periodic review of their child support collections based on economics. Now, a lot of states are somewhat resistant to this idea because, the child support enforcement formula for the incentives payment to states under Social Security, Section 458 under Title 4D, they're resistant to this because they have incentive metrics set up saying that they're supposed to go up from year over year on their collections of money and their establishment of the number of paternities and a set of other metrics. Okay. Now, if you were truly focused on the economist evaluation, you would be looking at what the costs for children are based on the economic levels, based on the income of the parents. And I dare say, using these inflated figures, they work out quite well in terms of auto cash to the state. All right. Best interest of the state. And people often come into the child support enforcement program thinking it's there for the kids. It's not there for the kids. It's there to protect the financial interests of the state. Now, every state has this what they call a multi-paneled review board. And if you take the red pill,
we're giving it to him.
We're recommending
yes,
take the red pill. Swallow deeply. With the red pill, you'll want to learn more about how Title 4D works. And with that knowledge, there are ways to get out of the child support system if you are under a child support enforcement Title 4D case. And I highly recommend the YouTube channel of a gentleman named Chris Henry called Child Support Made Simple. This guy went through it himself, and he has been helping people learn how to get out of the system. And they've been achieving a level of success in suing child support agencies and magistrate, not judges, child support magistrates. And there's so many things about that I just can't cover it in this moment of time.
I know it, man. We got to get him on this show.
I'm highly recommending that you get him on the show.
Yeah,
but the gentleman is right. But the time for you to make an evaluation about what the true costs are based on economics and stuff is before you agree to an order. And this is where I say men are often, and teen boys are often manipulated emotionally with the flawed belief that if I pay more, it means I love my kid. If I agree to pay through the child support enforcement system, it means I'm responsible. Dude, you are responsible if you pay your child support through Cash App. You are responsible if you use Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, but under no circumstances should you ever pay her cash.
I thought you was going to leave it out. I should have knew better. I was like, oh.
No.
I was already ready.
Look, and I'm going to say, due to record keeping and your need to maintain accurate record keeping for what the payments are, who they were for, who they're paid to, and what they were for, I highly recommend the use of those direct payment methods that you can control yourself. And whatever you agree to pay, I say first find out what the law will require you to pay and pay that. And anything else you agree to do should have a contingency tied to your frequent, consistent contact with the kid. And I am not counting video conferences. Video conferences should be an add-on. It is not, I repeat, it is not a replacement for physical, face-to-face, hugging, touching time with your kid. And there should be some penalties for parental alienation when you can prove the other parent is undermining your relationship with the kid. That other parent should be subject to losing custody of the child and being required to pay you child support, because that parent is not operating in a manner that is in the best interest of the child to have frequent and consistent quality contact with both sides of their family. That would be a game changer.
Oh, definitely, man. All of our battles, guys, even though they might have different stuff, whether it's parental alienation, it feels like you're grieving the loss of a living child. There's guys in here I've been hearing from all week, Carnell, that break your heart, that
Yeah.
did lose a child,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Paternity fraud.
Yes.
That's like losing a child.
Like having one die in your arms because that relationship has been based on a lie.
And so, guys, get out here, support your brothers, man. Let's do this. I think the number one way that we can change this is to have education around these subjects, and
Yes.
by having conversations like we did, man. I hate that we're such limited on time because I could have done 5 more hours with you. But I tell you what, though, guys,
Yeah.
if you like Carnell and you want him to come back, say it in the comments. I know I've already talked about this book, but I tell you what I'm going to do for whoever's watching this right now. If you like and you share this, whoever does it the most, I'm going to send a book of this or this book to you in the mail, and I'll reach out to you, get your address, because we need to arm our people with this. Maybe I can come on here like an episode of Audible and read it.
Okay.
Now,
All right.
do you have it on Audible?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
I've been told that I have the voice to do voiceover.
I think you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Takes some
Denzel.
time to do this. It takes some time to do this. But what I want to say, one of the main reasons that I keep doing what I do, Eric, because I've been out of the system since February 6, 2003. That was the day I walked out of court after the U.S. Supreme Court turned me down after I raised 2 constitutional arguments with my goal to help men and boys across all U.S. states and territories not go to jail and prison for a pregnancy they didn't commit. I finally won by changing the law in my state, using the law that I helped my legislators write. I felt that was some poetic justice. I literally, Eric, I was saying, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. They can't touch me no more. They can't touch my family's finances. And guess what else they can't do? They can't shut me up. Because what I've joined shows like yours, Eric, hoping to inspire those men who go from the depths of despair, the depths of hopelessness, thinking it's just me. Dude, it's not just you. It is a system institution that works the way it does to keep you from your kids in order to maximize the highest payment that they can get you to agree to or get you ordered into paying. And the less you know about how it works, you'll think that you're demonstrating how much you love your kid, and you'll agree to something that you cannot sustain year after year. So my goal here is to inspire people, become advocates. Also, at some point, we got to do more than say, woe is me. Yep. At some point, we got to lock arms with fellow like-minded brothers and people who have already learned about the system. Like I said, I recommended some great resources. Molly Olson on YouTube. Chris Henry. I'm on YouTube. I'm Carnell Smith. I'm the paternity coach. And you can find me at thepaternitycoach.com. That'll get you the resources. Then just because I might not know the answer, I might know some people that you can connect with or other ways that you can get help and learn how to stop being helpless to taking control of your situation. Because I've seen some guys who took the bull by the horns and they fought back and they got custody of their kids because the other parent continued to do a sustained pattern of those vile things that they were able to keep records of. They established a pattern of it. They collected evidence. They learned how to collect the evidence, properly present the evidence, and they went in there and they slugged a grand slam, got custody of their kid, got a child support order established, and they're setting aside that money in the college fund for their kid. But you can't do it if you keep thinking year over year, it can't get any better. It's just me. If I keep my head down, they'll leave me alone. Guess what? They're not going to leave you alone. In the Child Support Enforcement Court, every 2 to 3 years, they are entitled to do a review of your existing child support case. And they could go to her and say, well, you know what? Since he's not seeing the child, he needs to pay more. And that other person is not going to tell the court, oh, yeah, every time he came in town to see the child, I made sure that we were out of town. I made sure he didn't get to see that child. And in fact, when he came to my door with the police and a copy of his court order, I refused. I refuse, and I told the sheriff to kick rocks. She won't tell that. But when you learn about some of those strategies about why it's important that you bring some witnesses, and I was dumb enough to bring off-duty law enforcement with me as witnesses. Now when I said dumb, I was being sarcastic. But guess what? When you have off-duty law enforcement with you as witnesses to ensure that there's no problems or trouble at the handoff for your kid, you know that officer makes a darn good witness at court over what happened, not because they were there for you. And you pay for a service. You getting what I'm saying? These are ideas of strategies when you start to learn how to think out of the box. You get the benefit of working with those people. Say, man, how can I protect the relationship of my kid so that there's frequent and consistent contact with my kid that's in the child's best interest? Just because you don't know it today doesn't mean there's no way it can be done. How about that one? How about that, Eric? And ultimately, when we learn what our options are and we learn how to aggressively represent ours and our kids' interests, we get better results. We get better outcomes. And then we start taking that next step because we took the red pill. We go before our legislators like I and many others in Georgia, and we managed to lobby for successfully and get Georgia to change from only calculating the child support based on the gross income of the non-custodial parent. Georgia, is like many other states now, requires that you impute income to the other parent, even if she's not working.
I'll keep my mouth shut.
Yeah,
I'm in Georgia.
Yeah, look, they claim it. Well, it takes two people to have a child. Like, no, it doesn't. It takes one person to make a decision. Because if the father wants to have the child, he has no say so in the matter of whether that child gets born or not.
Oh,
right?
Come on now.
I'm being honest.
I got you. I'm
being
feeling
honest.
that was strong, man. I love the way you put it. That's so true.
So if you say as a society, we want these dads to step up to the plate. Well, dadgummit, let's knock the barriers out of the way.
That's right.
And let's make it so that kids get some meaningful quality time. And when I say meaningful, 50% is the starting point, not currently zero. Because if you're a single dad, for you got zero rights until you do something to establish your legal identity for more than paying the child support. And by the way, just signing a document that says, oh yeah, I acknowledge that, I confess I'm the child's father. All that does is set you up to pay child support. Gets you no rights to see the child. Gets you no custodial parenting time for the child. But what would happen if you knew how to set it up in the initial, and then you were aggressive in defending and protecting your child's right to have frequent, consistent, quality time with you? And you went after that like somebody who had a Rottweiler who hadn't had a steak in a while. You would be a force to contend with. But what happens when we go and agree to overpay, and we go in and agree to a child support payment well beyond what even the law would have required you to do?
Kanye.
You're setting yourself up, Kanye, and everybody else who thinks that I love my child. So even though the order says all I got to do is pay $1,250 a month, oh no, I'm going to agree to pay $2,050 a month because that's going to demonstrate how manly I am.
Carnell, there's people out there that are thinking you're full of crap right now. Nobody's going to agree to pay more. We had a caller yesterday asking if you should pay more.
Yes, there are.
There are, because they think that means they love their kids and that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And guess what? And some of that has been fed by those who took the blue pill.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that blue pill.
I'm not flashing that one.
That blue pill feeding has come, sad to say, has become by a lot of men who have not been influenced by having a relationship with their dad. So a lot of that has come when you've been influenced to only view the female perspective. And those blue pill guys, they get duped into believing that you should do just everything because that's what the woman says. That's crap. Because they'll have you paying exorbitant amounts and having no meaningful relationship with the kid. Tell me, how does that help the kid? It doesn't. It makes you used and abused, and then you become a simp in the process. Now, who wants to sign up for the blue pill once you understand that's how it works? Morpheus says, take the red pill.
I had it ready. I knew it was. Oh, dude, I have enjoyed this so much, guys. 2003 is when this man went through that, and then he went on a journey and passed legislations in states that had nothing to do with you. Your fight was here in Georgia, but he turned his pain into purpose, right? And there was a caller earlier that we heard some pain, and he doesn't know how he's going to get through that. Dude, sometimes your pain is leading you to your purpose, and your pain might be the instruction manual for somebody else's journey. So don't forget that. Even though you feel beaten down, you feel depressed, and everything's coming against you right now, you might be finding your greatest strengths. These are the moments that make us. Don't let them break you. They make us. They don't break us. Guys, I'm fired up. Love it, Carnell. Take that red pill. We've told you. Guys. Yes. Christmas, we want to adopt a dad. 100% of the proceeds is going to go to probably a few dads out there in the community. If you could, Dad Talk Today on Venmo, no spaces. We want to get that out there. We will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then we'll be having a replay at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's going to be Sunday through Saturday. Sunday to Sunday. It's 7 days a week. So, Carnell, dude, we got to do it again sometime soon, man. I enjoyed it.
Man, it has been fabulous to be on Dad Talk Today again with the fabulous Eric Carroll. I'm Carnell Smith. I'm the paternity coach.
That's it. All right, man. Go to, was it paternitycoach.com?
It is the THE paternitycoach.com. The paternitycoach.com.
All right, guys, get it. Carnell, thanks, my man.